Well, first off, as you can tell, Luke and I are pretty fired up for this session. Before I jump in, I thought I'd take the opportunity to firstly shout out Marcus Colby, who's done a great job emceeing. He's obviously a pretty funny guy, but an incredible practitioner in his own right as well. And then a big shout out to our marketing team, who've done a tremendous job putting this all together. Our boy Blake in the corner putting together these slides. It's been a huge effort, and last of all, but most importantly, you all coming here, giving us 2 days of your time has been amazing. So give yourselves a round of applause. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today is the connected team reaching new levels of performance. And the team that we're going to be talking about is not the one made up of athletes and service members, but it's the integrated performance team, of which you're all a part of within your organization. And the aim today is for us to show how we can maximize the effectiveness of your human performance team by utilizing technology and enhancing your data sharing and collaboration. So where we want to start is acknowledge that every one of these human performance teams exists in a high-stakes environment. And with that, you're being asked to deliver on outcomes that are valuable to your organization. And so to help us through this presentation, what we want to do is zoom in on an outcome that is valued almost universally by every organization represented here, and that's the value of winning. The outcome of winning. So before I get into this, I want to acknowledge that there are a huge number of factors that influence a team's ability to win, okay? But what we want to try to do today is build a little bit of a framework around what the performance team's impact is on winning. Now, a colleague of mine once gave me this equation as a basic framework to understand what we do as a human performance team and the factors that we have impact on. Two reasons I like this equation. Firstly, you can see on the right there, it says increased odds of winning, okay? There are no guarantees in sport or on the battlefield, okay? At the end of the day, what we're trying to do is increase our odds. The other reason I like this is it makes a lot of sense, okay? If we have the most talented personnel, the most talented athletes, and they're available to perform, then our odds of winning goes up. But as we took this basic framework and we started to have more and more conversations with the people in this room, okay, and across our network, what became clear was that we were missing a key factor, okay? And that factor was readiness, or what I really like is how the tactical realm describes as preparedness. And all we're talking about here is how prepared is the athlete to perform at their best when heading into competition. So again, we look at this. If I have the most talented athletes, they're available to perform, and they're at their absolute best, again, even further, our odds of winning goes up. Now, what I want to do is zoom in on availability and readiness. I don't want to discount our impact on talent, but at the end of the day, our roles in driving athlete development and recruiting are a smaller part of our role compared to what we do from the availability and readiness standpoint. Now, before we get into how technology fits into this, what I want to do is I just want to talk about who makes up this team, okay? So we have the medical staff, okay? Strength conditioning coaches, dietitians. We're going to talk about the kitchen staff, okay? Prepare the meals, the sports scientists, and we can have a bit of debate on this, but we've included the coaching staff. And although they aren't typically thought of as part of the human performance team, we know that we collaborate with them a lot in our roles, and they have a huge impact upon these factors of availability and readiness. Now, diving into the how here, we want to talk about how we can leverage technology, okay, to drive the effectiveness of the human performance team. And the way that we thought we would do this is instead of putting up a slide with listing out all the different products that we provide and talking about their benefits, we wanted to tell a bit of a story of the day in the life of an athlete and how the staff facilitate the athlete's movement throughout the day. Again, going back to that availability and readiness point, we want to see how technology can drive availability and readiness within your team. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Luke and let him introduce our athlete.
Yeah, so I'm playing Caleb, the athlete, today. In this scenario, Caleb's cleared for practice, full participation, coming off some Achilles tendonitis. And because of that, you all in the room know there's a few more eyeballs on me. There's more attention to the care that's being provided, maybe just to a little bit greater degree. And we want to bring it back to this slide, you all the people in this room, but replace availability and readiness with myself, Caleb, the athlete, because two really important things are going to happen. We've heard it a ton over the last day. I don't think it's ironic that the folks that are in this room, the people that have presented the last couple days, we've talked about accessibility, collaboration as the human performance unit. I thought John Waggle yesterday did a really nice job of tying it back to the athlete, and it's exactly what we want to highlight here, because that's the key component here, is how can you simplify the very complex collaboration that you all have, and in real time, deliver it to Caleb through a unified process, but also through your technology. So the kind of vehicle we're going to use here today is the TeamWorks vehicle. We want you to jump into it. We want the athlete, and that's the story that I'm going to share here today. He only has to go to one place here. That's the source of truth, right? That's the business account that you're putting and providing for your athlete. That's going to start from here in this moment, when I wake up, to when we rinse and repeat, evolve it, and do it again the next day. So as an example, I'm going to be in that one source of truth dashboard here with TeamWorks, and that's going to start with maybe some fun things, right? Checking the weather, what's going on throughout the day, all the action items. But in reality, here in the morning, the very first thing that I'm going to have to do is go through, like we do as all adults, the scheduling piece, right? The components, what logistically really is going to fall onto my plate. But how can I provide you all in this room some feedback right away, right? How well did I sleep? How many hours? What's the fatigue that's going on? Mood, stress levels, et cetera, all the things that you all have in play there. Again, going through that one mobile application. And then the second piece is I'm going to go ahead and start doing some rehab pieces right there at home before I ever even enter the facility and start work with the sports med team.
Cool. So as Luke alluded to, we actually picked up a lot from the conversations yesterday. And I was particularly interested to hear how the Pittsburgh Pirates teams kind of shared their collaboration. And what we want to move into now is think about what's happening in the day while Caleb's kind of getting ready to come into the facility. We know that the staff are probably already in there and they're setting up. They're setting up assessment tools, okay? But they're also trying to look through the data that's available to them to get context for what's going to happen throughout the day. Now, what's common, and I'm sure you're all familiar with this, is there's a morning staff medical and performance meeting. And this is where you all get together and you talk about each of your athletes and what types of interventions you want to do throughout the day. And what's critical at this time is the availability of data and the shared understanding of the data that's available. So what we're going to look at here is we're actually going to look at how we can utilize a dashboard within the TeamWorks AMS system to collaborate during that meeting. And then we're also going to take a look at a specific practitioner doing an action off the back of that meeting, specifically the dietitian updating a meal plan based on that conversation. So let's jump in. What we've got here is a very simple readiness dashboard that's got some key metrics from the wellness data we just collected and some of the training load data. What we can do in the meeting is sort of filter up and down to see who's at risk. So we've got Caleb at the top for a soreness flag. Now what I want to do is be able to jump across to the individual tab and dive a little bit deeper into Caleb's data, because we know where he's at today, but how did he get there? So again, whatever data you put on this particular view, you can start to see the trends that have led up to where Caleb is. At the bottom, we can see sort of a trend and some training load data. It's RPs or it's actual GPS data. Now, the conversation has happened during the meeting that we've got to increase Caleb's caloric intake because he's now returning to practice. So jumping over, the dietitian can go into the Teamworks nutrition product, make a change from the injury recovery meal plan into the return to play meal plan. So again, the idea would be that during that meeting, we are making a decision on an intervention, and then within this ecosystem, we can go and take that action. And that meal plan and all of its components will be communicated both to the athlete and throughout the other Teamworks products.
So basically now pulling out of the parking lot, right, and headed into the facility, going to go ahead and start to communicate with the nutrition team, that entire team, which is including the kitchen staff here. I'll say it again a lot, right? I want to actually repeat that as coming back to that same source of truth, which is going to be the dashboard. Next action item is that I'm putting in my meal, right? Exactly what I'm going to be able to eat that day, delivered instantaneous to the kitchen staff. That really probably one of the most important things is when am I available to actually pick that up, right? It's not necessarily dictated on the folks in the room, but what's most important is the athlete in that standpoint. And then instantaneously being able to check in and share that I'm available right through the mobile application, through that QR code, to the sports medicine team that I'm going to be prepared and ready to work with.
Okay, before I dive into this part, I do want to give a massive shout out to the Hytro team. I'm sure a lot of you sat in on the presentation yesterday. They're doing some amazing work. They also were collaborating with us on this presentation and gave us a great protocol that we can use as an example during this part. So where we are in the day, we have Caleb's now in the facility. He's checked in to let the sports medicine team know that he's available. So what we want to be able to do is grab Caleb for some treatment. But what I don't want to miss out on here is what the kitchen staff are doing based on the order that Caleb has just placed. So where we're going to start here is we're going to take a look at the kitchen side of the nutrition product. And what we can do is we can open the breakfast meal, and what we can see here is Caleb's meal that he's placed through the Teamworks app, and now we can just let Caleb know that it's cooking and it's available for him when he arrives at 7:30. Now on the AMS side or EMR side here, what the athletic trainer can do is open Caleb's existing injury record and start by getting context on what's been done previously with Caleb. Then what they can do is jump in and create a new treatment, okay, and document this interaction. So we're doing a lower leg massage, and then we're going to put some notes in about what we actually did to ensure we're being compliant. But then we're also going to write in here that we're going to make a change in rehab exercises to include the Hytro protocol that we'll go through in more detail. Now the last piece is we want to be able to encourage collaboration with strength conditioning. So we're going to go to the section of this form where we can create a weight room status update, mark full participation, and then let the coach know that we want them to implement the Hytro protocol during today's session, okay? Once we save this, now an alert will be able to go to the strength conditioning coach to go and make that modification in Teamworks strength conditioning. But before we get to that, we'll hand back to Luke.
Yeah, so now it's go time, right? All that work's been done. All the players have been added, reporting to practice, pieces here that are going to happen, coming right back in. But logistically is really the instantaneous communication. Let's see if. Exactly. So that logistical piece of the communication coming right back in from that sixth layer from the coaching staff, right? Maybe a director of operations in this case, saying there's been a last-minute movement there within practice, calming the noise, any anxiety that can happen with that. Basically now in the locker room and jumping right on, kind of Bluetoothing through a set of scales, entering in the body weight for the day that's happening, again, clearly communicating with you all some of the decisions that are going to be made down the road here later on in the day.
Cool. So now, at the same time that Caleb is going through that process of weighing in and heading out to practice, we know that the strength conditioning coach also has to be present for practice. Now, in our scenario here, the way that we sort of talked about this is there are situations where you have practice and then immediately go into a lift. okay? So you only have a small window to make adjustments, or else you're going to be scrambling when you get to the lift to add those adjustments to Caleb's program. So what we want to demonstrate here is that the coach can get that alert from the athletic trainer to make the modification, and then go straight across to the strength conditioning product, click into the team's program, go to our workout for today, which is going to be day 2, week 2. And now I can go from the team plan down specifically into Caleb's and add an exercise that we've titled the Hytro Protocol. And we're going to use the 5x15 with 30 seconds rest for this particular exercise today. And what we can also do is quickly throw in an instruction to help Caleb understand exactly what he's going to do in this exercise. Now, making this modification is great, but we also then need to make sure it's distributed in all the different locations we need it. So firstly, we need to publish it, which makes it available in places like AMS, on the mobile app, on tablet. But if we're also a coach that likes to have backups, maybe we want to print out cards, okay, to make sure that if Wi-Fi fails in the weight room, we've got a backup. So I can multi-select athletes and one-click print new cards for everybody. And what we'll see in this, the last one here, is we'll see Caleb's program with our added exercise. Now, the last thing we're going to do, again, because we don't have a lot of time as strength coaches, we're going to set up a tablet. We're going to talk about it in our next section for 4 of our athletes so that when they step off the field and come straight into the weight room, they can start interacting with the app and we can go through the training session without any interruption. Before I hand back to Luke, I do want to give a quick shout out to Output Sports again. They did a fantastic presentation. I think that the technology is amazing. And we've had some conversations with Output around facilitating a different part of the data flow process. So we have an integration with Output into AMS, which brings the data collected during the workout into that AMS system so you can view it in dashboards. But there's another component, which is how do I program once in teamwork, strength conditioning, and then have those exercises available on the VBT, on our VBT system, so in Output. So what we're going to continue to work on them with is actually building that integration. So it's one place to program, it's distributed everywhere, so that you can spend less time double entering and more time actually with the athletes.
Yeah, exactly. I want to call out Output here as well, because I completely agree with kind of, we had those breakoff sessions yesterday of just how important competition is and intent in every session. We know one way to make that happen is for the athlete to feel and to know that they're very laser focused on that movement specifically, that exact protocol. So in this case, I'm focused on just the lift. The coach and or the athlete in this case can see the modifications that are happening on that main lift, whether that's in a velocity or that's just entering in a simple weight to be able to track that on the back half. The lift is done in this scenario. I'm now back in the locker room, in the kiosk application there within the facility to weigh back out, which is also going to show where Dan's going next, some of the prescription that's going to come off of this from what's happened in practice, and also within the lift with some fluid recommendations and nutritional recommendations here later in the day.
Cool, so Caleb's day in the facility is almost done, but we know that there's still a lot of work to be done by the human performance team, having a look at all of the data that's being collected. So we've had a practice, we've had a lift, and what we need to do is, as quickly as possible, be able to review that data and start to get context so that we can begin to be more proactive in our decision making. Is there anything we need to do with Caleb today, or is there anything we might want to watch out for tomorrow in Caleb's training? So what we're going to look at here is we're going to zoom in on just 2 key data sets, strictly focusing on the load aspect. So we're going to look at how we can review the strength conditioning data that's been collected in the weight room, and then also the practice data from the practice earlier in the day. So we'll start with strength conditioning. So what we want to be able to do here is, again, get context on any flags from a volume standpoint for athletes. And what you'll notice there is it's not just total volume, but it's also load through movement patterns. We can get some longitudinal trends for the team in terms of how the team's been tracking day to day or even week to week. And then just a quick preview here, looking at things like push to pull ratio, so you can start to do some program evaluation. But where we really want to zoom in here is with Caleb and look at his individual report. So now what we can do is we can see session by session what flags and how much volume we've done in different movement patterns. I want to draw your attention to those dull bars on the right-hand side, or those faded bars. They're actually future sessions. So with that integration with S&C, you can push not just what you've done, but also what you're planning to do. I can review individual workouts and see what we actually prescribed in the AMS, and I can also see a history of it below as I scroll back and forth. And lastly, I can look at an individual exercise and see from a volume standpoint or even a velocity trend standpoint how my athlete has been performing. Now, let's go over and look a little bit at the practice report. So this is, again, a simple practice report that's going to equate, firstly, the load from today's session, so I can see if anyone did more load than I was expecting, okay? We can see it in the table, but we can also look at the leaderboard, plotting a group average, and we can just see, right, who are my top performers, who are the guys that maybe didn't perform quite as well. And lastly, we just want to use a simple flag report here, so totals of last 7 days, 28 days, and then using the ACWR flags, acute chronic workload flags, okay, we can then start to think about, do we need to have some conversations off the back of this, okay? We've got a lot of red there, okay, a little bit intentionally, but this would be something where you might want to actually have some more conversations amongst the team, like why are we seeing this across our group? So again, bringing all that data together as quickly as possible, once you get time to review it, is going to enable you to be very proactive.
Good, and not exhaustive here, but we're closing out the day with, we all as a group have done a heck of a job of creating the stimulus, right? To continue to progress myself throughout the day. Now the Hayes semi and the barn, and we're going to start to kind of get the recovery pieces into play. What that's going to look like here within TeamWorks is very simple. Going back to that same source of truth, communicating with the medical team that I've actually left the facility, coming back at 7 p.m. tonight to get into the cold whirlpool. Okay, so I'm going to have that contrast path that's happening again at the area of opportunity that's going to meet me and that need. Now I'm back in facility with the same mobile application, checking into that appointment, letting the sports medicine team know that that has been done, which, as Dan will show you, will deliver right back into the EMR as well.
Okay, so let's bring this all together. So from the athlete perspective, hopefully it's being clear that we really want to simplify their life. Okay, we've talked about the single TeamWorks app. Okay, but what we also saw is the sheer number of actions that are taken across the performance team to drive the athlete throughout the day. And one of the things that we feel very strong, we know we've been able to do, is put together point solutions for each practitioner that allows them to do their daily processes seamlessly. But one of the strengths of an integrated technology stack is that you end up getting alignment across your human performance team when it all comes together into one system. Okay, and that's where the AMS really comes into its own in this piece. Okay, and then if we layer on with Caleb going through the TeamWorks mobile app, now we've made everything so accessible. Okay, we've removed any barriers for our athlete. And what a system like this will produce, this integrated technology stack will produce, is coordinated care. And we saw that where the athletic trainer was able to pass off that modification to the programming, to the strength coach, and then them being able to go into the strength conditioning tool and update the program. Okay, we saw the shared performance insights, okay, going through the one readiness dashboard as a team so that everybody has an understanding of where the athletes are at. Data-informed prescription adjustments. So again, off the back of that meeting, allowing the dietitian to go over to the nutrition side and enter in an update to the meal plan. From the proactive decision-making side, we saw that illustrated where we were able to actually bring through future workouts into our AMS dashboard so we can start to see, okay, here's where we've been, here's where today's session was, what are we looking like tomorrow? And what we can do then is say, do we need to make adjustments? All right? Real-time athlete feedback. So we saw a couple of examples from the wellness questionnaire, but then we also saw even something like the meal ordering and getting that to the kitchen staff so they can cook it on time, okay, for Caleb is such a powerful piece. And then we're going to keep reiterating this, the simplified athlete experience. There's no longer 4 or 5 apps that your athletes need to go to. They open up the One Teamworks app and they can interact with all the different providers. So where we want to go now is just come back to this equation again. So we've put Caleb up. He's the talent here. Okay, he's the talent that we've got. And so what we need to do as a human performance team is ensure that we're collaborating effectively, we're sharing data effectively, so that we can maximize his availability and his readiness to perform. Now, before we wrap up here, we want to get a little bit practical, okay? So we want you to sort of take a moment right now to think, okay, what's one piece of data that you think, if shared with the entire performance team, could drive better collaboration? Okay, I'm sure there are pieces in your environment where it's like, if we could just share that piece of data with this team, we could make better and more impactful decisions. And again, I think the illustration we got from the Pirates team yesterday with the peanut butter and jelly sandwich is a great example. Okay, the availability of data there and the collaboration that it led to enhanced the care they could offer to the athlete. What information can I make available to my team members? So again, we want to encourage you to not hoard your data, okay? If we can share as much as we can, then somebody might gain a lot of context is going to help them do their job better. And taking just a little time on this last point, at Teamworks, we don't want to just be seen as a technology provider. Okay, we invest a lot of resources and time into recruiting people who've come out of your seats in professional and collegiate sport and the tactical realm. They understand the challenges that you face day to day, okay? And not only that, but since they've been on this side, they've had the opportunity to see hundreds of different implementations of technology and hundreds of high-performance environments. So they have a lot to give in the conversations if you're willing to collaborate. So what we would ask is that you work with us in the same way that Corey and I collaborated on strength conditioning. We want to encourage that from all of our customers because hopefully it helps you, and we believe it will help you, but it also helps us build better products. So the more that you share with us, the more that we get a fuller understanding of what you do, it will drive the products that we can provide, which will ultimately deliver more value and get us to the ultimate goal of driving that availability and readiness with our athletes. With that, I might open up to any questions.
Morning. My question revolves around just adoption of tools like this. So, in sports performance, I feel like all the parts that you listed there, you get the full integration with everyone on the back end, and it really is quite seamless. How difficult is it to get the athlete to actually open their phone and just do any of the things you put in there? Hoping the practical experience and exposure you guys have, because practitioners will adopt technology if they feel like it works. I feel like we're maybe reaching a point where, because the athletes are younger, they're starting to adopt technology a little bit more, but still the current set of pros are a little bit more old school. So can you share a little bit on your experience about that?
Yeah. You want to start, and then I can bring it home with an example?
Yeah, I mean, the word I would use is you all, the people around them, being able to share the value of you've created and eliminated competing priorities around them, right? Like we've reached a day and time and age that no longer is it good enough to have 50 places for them to go to give you all the excuses, right? And that you've leaned on a provider that's listened and will continue to say, here's your business account. We've made this really easy to put your family life, the other things that are going on throughout the day in other locations, but when it comes to working with you all, they know they go to one spot and that's where they are going to open their phone. And I think that drives adoption. I think it's just a cultural piece. It's got to be pretty early and often, carried throughout, right? Like the intent is there and the action follows it to drive that culture.
And just as a practical example, my job when I was working with the different organizations on the strength conditioning portion of this app, the job was made super easy because the athletes were already using Teamworks to get their scheduling. And that's kind of an essential piece. Like the athletes want to know where they have to be. And there's already a huge amount of engagement with the app from that standpoint. And one of the things that coaches would tell me is like, yeah, it's really hard if we've got our programs in a PDF or it's in a completely different place, we don't get a lot of compliance. And they say, and we were told, like, we want that with the schedule because the athletes are already going to be in there and they can see that program right in front of them. I'm sure it's the same thing with the dietitians, although I haven't worked as closely. I'm assuming providing nutrition information is a lot easier when it's already going to be in the same place that they go for their scheduling and logistics. So I think just bringing that all together should lead to a lot more adoption of some of the other human performance domains.
Sorry, just on that point, guys, I think there's a real defined period in Clubland. I've been in Clubland prior to my time at Teamworks, but as a club or organization, you really need to, from a leadership from the top, to make a real decision and bring the club on the journey or the team on that journey and make that decision around your products to say, we're all in or we're going on this journey. And you need to educate those people along that journey, whether it's the sports scientist or the strength and conditioning coach and the next people and then the athletes. So, a practical way to do that is put some of this stuff into their programming, whether it's a 10-minute, twice a week education piece on using S&C or using AMS or whatever it is, that creates the stickiness around these products internally within your organization.
So that's a great example for athletes that have everything, hub and S&C and nutrition, but what about tactical does AMS app still exist? What if you only have just AMS and wellness or just nutrition and AMS? How's all that work?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Josh. Our vision is that AMS is going to roll into this. We want to make sure that when we bring AMS in, that it fits neatly into this ecosystem. So we're in the process right now of working it in. The beauty of, say, a strength conditioning is we got to build the app portion of that into the ecosystem that was there. With AMS, as you can imagine, it's a very, very in-depth tool. And so integrating it's a little bit more challenging. So the vision is still there, but yes, for the moment we're providing still the AMS app, but it will come into this unified experience. Yes, that's a good one. This is actually a very cool data flow that I only just recently learned about. Again, being a little bit disconnected for the last few months, but using sort of a hub questionnaire, we can now pull that data from the hub questionnaire into AMS, so that if you don't want to use the app, the Teamworks app, the Teamworks AMS app, because you're just trying to deliver a questionnaire, you can use a hub questionnaire to drive that. In an AMS. Well, the answer to that is we haven't actually tried that use case yet, so appreciate you giving us the idea. But I mean, there's a lot of data and there's a lot of flow that we're still working on, and this is exactly the collaboration we're talking about. Is you've got to give us these ideas and say, hey, I want that as an encounter. And for those who don't know, like in the tactical realm, a lot of what we offer and a lot of what the practitioners are asked to do is just track how many encounters they're having. So that would be a great example of letting the athlete drive the interaction, and that just automatically contribute to an encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Since the hub survey data now flows in AMS, can you get the schedule data to flow in as well?
So I'll answer it like this. Same response is we're going to build that integration. As you can tell, there's a lot of products that we're working through, but we know that's a big one. We've also talked about it from the S&C standpoint as well. Like when a coach is scheduling sessions, they need the context of class schedules or when practice is. So yes, the schedule piece and how that's going to integrate to the other systems. And it's definitely available in nutrition, but yeah, we're still working on the other two components of performance.
All right, we're going to wrap on this one. Thanks again to Dan and the crew here, and Luke.